What happens in relationships when mental health shows up? When you care deeply about each other, but something internal keeps getting in the way? Welcome to Evolve Your Intimacy with Dr. Stephanie. I'm Dr. Stephanie, licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and clinical sexologist. And this is a special series where we're diving into the real, often misspoken ways mental health disorders impact intimate relationships. Throughout this series, we're going to break down some of the most common mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, ADHD, trauma, and so much more, and explore what they actually look like inside a relationship. This is about understanding what's really happening right beneath the surface so you can stop repeating the same cycle and start building something more intentional. So whether you're struggling or you love someone who is, this series is for you. Stay tuned. Let me ask you something about how much of what you know about intimacy was actually taught to you. Communication, desire, boundaries, power dynamics. Most people are trying to build deeply connected relationships without ever being given the tools to do it. And that's exactly why I created the workshops at Evolve Your Intimacy. Real conversations, real skills, and real transformation, whether you're exploring connection, kink, or communication. And if you can't make it live, you can access them anytime online because better intimacy isn't luck, it's learned. Go to evolveyourintimacy.com and start evolving your intimacy today. Welcome back to the Evolve Your Intimacy podcast, the podcast where we talk honestly about love, sex, connection, conflict, and the emotional patterns that shape our most intimate relationships. I'm Dr. Stephanie, licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and the founder of Evolve Your Intimacy. This episode is part of our series on how mental health disorders affect intimate relationships, not to shame, not to diagnose, or label our partners, but to better understand what may be happening underneath the surface. Today, we're talking about bipolar disorder, the highs, the lows, the impact on love, trust, finances, emotional safety, and intimacy. Bipolar disorder is not about being moody. It involves clear shifts in mood, energy, and activity level, concentration, and functioning, including manic and hypomanic episodes and depressive episodes. Bipolar disorder can feel like loving someone in different weather systems, whether the relationship feels electric, passionate, alive, full of ideas, plans, sex, intensity, and possibility. And then sometimes the same relationship can feel heavy, distant, silent, and painful. One partner may be thinking, where did the person I love go? And the other one may be thinking, I don't even understand what is happening inside of me. This episode is not about blaming the person with bipolar disorder, and it's not about telling the partner to tolerate chaos forever. It's about learning how to say, I love you, and we need structure. I support you, and I also need stability. We can face this together, but we cannot pretend it doesn't affect us. Bipolar disorder usually includes episodes of emotional highs and emotional lows. Highs may be mania or hypomania, and the lows are depressive episodes. Hypomania is generally less severe than mania and may not disrupt functioning the same way, but it can still affect the relationship deeply. Before we talk about communication, trust, and intimacy, we have to understand what's actually happening. Because if you don't understand the pattern, you will personalize it. And when you do personalize it, the relationship starts to break down in ways that feel confusing, painful for both people. Bipolar disorder affects about 2.8% of adults in the United States, which is roughly about 7 million people. But here's what matters even more. Nearly 83% of these cases are considered severe, meaning the symptoms significantly impact daily functioning, relationships, decision-making skills, and emotional stability. If you're in a relationship where bipolar disorder is present, you are not dealing with something small. You are navigating something that fundamentally affects how the brain regulates mood, energy, and behavior. Now let's break this down. Bipolar disorder is not just emotional. It's a neurological and physiological disorder. It involves shifts in dopamine, which is our reward, pleasure, motivation center, our serotonin, which is our mood regulation, the sleep cycle and circadian rhythm, impulse control and executive functioning, which means this is not about someone choosing to feel a certain way, but, and this is really important, understanding the biology does not stop the impact. Both things are true at the same time. Let's start with mania, that high that feels so convincing. Mania is not just feeling really good. In a state of elevated brain activation where judgment, inhibition, and risk management are altered. During a manic episode, you may see rapid speech and racing thoughts, decreased need for sleep, sometimes functioning on just a few hours and sometimes days, increased confidence, or even less grandiose kind of impulsive decisions, increased goal-directed activity, irritability when challenged, risk-taking behavior, increased sexual drive, and some research shows that up to 50 to 70% of individuals experiencing hypersexuality during manic episodes, which can significantly impact the intimacy and relationship boundaries. And here's the part that is hard for partners. Mania often feels good to the person experiencing it. They may feel more productive, more connected, more creative, more confident, more alive, which means they may not see the problem. But the partner is often watching this and thinking, what the hell? This feels really fast. This feels frisky. This doesn't feel stable at all. Hypomania is a little bit different. So this is a less intense version of mania, but it's often more dangerous relationally because it can go unnoticed. The person may still be functioning, going to work, showering, being social, but underneath, sleep may be reduced, irritability may be increased, impulsivity may rise, boundaries may loosen, emotional intensity may fluctuate, and partners often sense this before it's acknowledged. They may say, something feels off, but they can't always name it. And this is where patterns begin to build over time. Another thing that we have to acknowledge is the depression. Individuals with bipolar disorder spend significantly more time in depressive states than manic ones, and some studies estimate up to 3 times as much time. So while mania often gets the attention, depression is often what shapes the long-term relational experience. During depressive episodes, you may see low energy and fatigue, loss of interest or pleasure, emotional numbness, withdrawal from connection, difficulty concentrating, changes in appetite, feeling worthless or guilt, decreased libido. And this is where the relationship can really get hurt because the partner may experience this as rejection, as disinterest, emotional distance, lack of effort. But internally, the person may be experiencing, I don't feel like myself. I don't have access to the energy I used to. I want to connect, but how can I get there? Another really intense area is there's always something called mixed episodes, and these are often more confusing for couples. This is when someone may feel depressed but agitated, low but restless, hopeless but impulsive, which can look like irritability, sudden shift in moods, and partners often describe this as, I don't know what version of you I'm getting. But why does this matter in relationships? Well, here's a key takeaway. You're not in a relationship with one constant emotional state. You're in a relationship with someone whose internal experience can shift in ways that impact behavior, connection, and decision-making. And over time, this creates confusion, emotional whiplash, misinterpretation, hurt. And unless a couple learns to name the pattern, it's going to stay. So let's reframe this. Instead of you're being inconsistent, let's shift to I think your mood might be shifting and it's affecting how we're connecting. Instead of you don't care about me, shift to I'm feeling a little disconnected and I want to understand what's happening for you right now. Understanding bipolar is not about excusing behavior. It's about seeing clearly, because when couples can see the pattern, they stop fighting each other and they start responding to the pattern together. Now that we understand what's happening internally, we need to talk about what this does between two people. because bipolar disorder doesn't just affect mood, it affects attachment, safety, the ability to emotionally rely on each other. And the core issue is inconsistency. At the foundation of every secure relationship, there is one thing: predictability, not perfection, not constant happiness, but a sense of, I can reach for you and I can have a general idea of how you're going to respond. Bipolar disrupts that because the same partner can feel deeply connected one week, distant or unavailable the next, highly engaged but suddenly withdrawn, warm and then irritable. And over time, the nervous system starts to register, I don't know what to expect. So, what does emotional whiplash feel like? Partners often describe this as, I feel like I'm constantly adjusting. I don't know which version of them I'm getting. I'm trying to keep up, but I feel off balance. And this creates something we call the emotional whiplash, where connection builds, then drops, then builds again, then disappears. And here's why that matters. The brain doesn't track connection, it tracks consistency. So even if there are moments in deep intimacy, if they are unpredictable, the nervous system doesn't fully trust them. So then we have an attachment injury where the bond starts to strain. And over time, the inconsistency can lead to what we call an attachment injury. And this happens when a partner reaches for connection, feels it briefly, then experiences a sudden emotional absence, unpredictability, or a rupture. And then their nervous system begins to ask, is it safe to depend on you? Research shows that partners of individuals with bipolar disorder report higher levels of anxiety and stress, increased depressive symptoms, lower relationship satisfaction over time, not because they don't love their partner, but because the system is trying to find a sense of unpredictability. So how can we adapt? When emotional safety feels inconsistent, people adapt. And these adaptations are often misunderstood as personality traits when they're actually a protective response. Hypervigilance. I need to watch closely so I can catch it early. What this looks like: monitoring sleep, watching a tone change, tracking spending, trying to predict mood shifts, but underneath, it's fear, and then overfunctioning. I'll hold everything together. This partner carries more responsibility, manages logistics, initiates conversation, keeps the relationship moving, but over time, it leads to exhaustion, resentment, and emotional burnout. There's also emotional suppression. My needs aren't important right now. So they ask for connection. They stop expressing frustration. They start minimizing their own experiences, which creates distance. I just mentioned protective detachment. I can't keep doing this, so I'm pulling back. This is where partners become less emotionally available. They stop investing deeply. They start questioning the relationship, and not because they don't care, but because they're trying to protect themselves. Let's look at this from the other side. The partner with bipolar is also having an experience, and it often sounds like, I feel like I'm being watched. I feel like nothing I do is enough. I feel judged. I feel controlled. I'm trying, but I still mess up. So now we have two nervous systems reacting. One is trying to gain control to feel safe, and one is trying to maintain authority to feel respected, and they're starting to collide. So let's talk about the system that develops. This is the pattern many couples fall into. A mood shift begins, a partner senses it and becomes anxious and controlling. Bipolar partner feels criticized or restricted, and they push back or withdraw. The conflict escalates. Both partners feel misunderstood and alone. And the real issue, the mood pattern, gets lost in the conflict. So, I'm going to talk about a meaning-making problem. Here's where things really break down. It's not just what's happening, it's what each partner believes it means. The supporting partner may think, you don't care about me. You're choosing this. I can't trust you. And the partner with bipolar might be thinking, you're trying to control me. I'm failing you. I'm too much. You'd be better off without me. And now we're no longer dealing with a mood shift. We're dealing with identity and worth inside the relationship. So let's reframe this. This is where couples need a shared language. Instead of, you're so inconsistent, I want you to try. I'm noticing a shift in how we're connecting, and it's affecting how I feel safe. Instead of, you're controlling me, try, I'm feeling pressured right now, and I want to stay connected while we figure this out. Couples who do well within bipolar disorder are not the ones with conflict. They're the ones who name the pattern early. Externalize the mood shift. It's not you versus me. We're going to reduce personalization. Build structure around unpredictability. Stay emotionally honest without attacking. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Bipolar disorder doesn't just create mood shift. It creates relational instability unless it's understood and addressed together. Because the real change doesn't come from one bad moment. It comes from a pattern going unnamed for too long. And the moment couples can say, this isn't just us fighting, this is a pattern and we need to understand it, that's where things begin to shift from reaction to responding, from blaming to collaborating, from feeling alone to feeling like a team again. Now we need to talk about the part that many couples avoid because it's uncomfortable, because it brings up fear, resentment, and sometimes a little shame. But if we don't talk about it, it quietly erodes the relationship over time. This is the layer of trust, stability, and the fear of what could happen next. The reality, bipolar impacts decision-making. And when the mood shifts, especially during mania or hypomania, decision-making changes, not just emotionally, but neurologically. During elevated states, we often see increased impulsivity, reduced risk awareness, heightened reward-seeking behavior, decreased long-term thinking, and this is not about irresponsibility. It's about impaired executive functioning. But again, understanding does not erase the impact. Financial instability, that is a hidden trauma in relationships. So let's start with finances, because this one is one of the most common and least openly discussed issues. Research shows that during manic episodes, impulsive spending is highly prevalent. Individuals may accumulate significant debt in a short amount of time. Financial decisions are often made quickly and without consultation, and for the partner, that doesn't just feel stressful, it feels destabilizing because money represents safety, security, future planning, control. So when the financial behavior becomes unpredictable, the partner's nervous system begins asking, am I safe here? So over time, the partner may begin to monitor accounts, question purchases, feel anxious about money, avoid long-term planning, take over the financial control. And while all of this may look like control, it's often fear trying to stabilize the uncertainty. Trust is not just about betrayal. Let's expand what trust actually means. Trust is not, will you cheat on me? Trust is, can I rely on your decisions? Can I trust your judgment? Can I predict your behavior? Can I feel safe building a life with you? And when bipolar disorder is unmanaged and inconsistent, the trust can begin to erode. Let's explore some sexual and emotional risk during mania. We also have to talk about something that's often avoided. During manic or hypomanic episodes, an increased dopamine and reduced inhibition can lead to heightened sexual desire, increased novelty seeking, lowered impulse control, and this can increase the risk of boundary crossing, infidelity, risky sexual behavior. It may not exist in every case, but often enough that it needs to be acknowledged. The partner internalizes the experience. If this has happened or even feels possible, the partner may start asking, was that real? Can I trust that? Can I trust that it won't happen again? Am I enough? Is this about me or an episode? And here's where it gets really complex. Even if the behavior was influenced by a mood episode, the impact still lands in the same relationship. The core fear, will this happen again? This is the question that sits underneath everything, not just what happened, but what's going to happen next. And if that question is not addressed, the partner stays in a state of anxiety, guardedness, emotional distance. So let's talk about why apologies alone don't work. This is an area where a lot of couples get stuck. One partner says, I'm sorry, that wasn't me, and the other partner hears, so I just have to accept it. Because apologies address the past, but they don't create future safety. So what actually rebuilds trust is through consistency, structure, and accountability over time, not intensity, not promises, not one good week. So what does repair sound like? Could be something like, I understand what happened impacted your sense of safety with me. I'm not asking to move on quickly. I'm willing to put systems in place so you don't have to carry that fear alone. That's completely different. That's grounded, and that's accountability. Structure is not control, it's protection. This is where couples often resist because structure can feel restrictive. But in reality, structure creates freedom and safety. Examples of a healthy structure can be agreed spending limits, transparency around finances, pause rules for major decisions, regular check-ins during elevated moods, agreements around sex, substances, and boundaries. But if intimacy includes touch without expectation, eye contact, presence, physical closeness, sexual connection without the pressure for sex, then connection can continue even when desire fluctuates. Couples who navigate this well, they talk openly about how desire changes across the states. They remove pressure during low states. They slow down intensity during high states. They stay connected through non-sexual touch. They build intimacy that is not dependent on performance. So instead of, you never want me anymore, try, I'm feeling disconnected and I'm missing being close to you. Instead of, you only want me when you're manic, try, I notice our connection feels different depending on where you're at. Can we talk about what feels real and sustainable for both of us? Let's be clear. The goal is not to make desire perfectly consistent. That's not realistic. The goal is to create a consistent connection even when desire changes. Here's something I want you to think about. Intimacy in relationships affected by bipolar disorder will not always be predictable, but it still can be safe, connected, intentional, and honest. Because real intimacy is not built on intensity. It's built on the ability to say, this is where I'm at right now, and I still want to stay connected to you. So this week, I want you to do a stability and intimacy check-in. I want you to set aside 20 minutes, and you're going to ask each other some questions. What mood state have I been closest to this week? Grounded, elevated, depressed, irritable, numb, or overwhelmed? What did you notice in me this week that helped you feel close to me? What did you notice that made you feel unsure, disconnected, unsafe? What is one practical support that I need this week? What is one intimacy gesture that we can offer each other that feels realistic? Okay, then I want you to choose one small intimacy action. Maybe a 10-minute cuddle with no pressure, a slow kiss before bed. Maybe it's a shower together, a walk holding hands, a check-in text during the day. Small consistency builds trust faster than dramatic promises. Bipolar disorder can bring real challenges into an intimate relationship, but the diagnosis itself is not the enemy. The enemy is silence. The enemy is untreated symptoms. The enemy is shame. The enemy is pretending the highs do not have consequences and the lows do not create distance. Healthy couples learn to say, we're not going to make your mood disorder the whole relationship. And we're not going to pretend it doesn't affect our relationship. There is a middle ground, a place where love has structure, where support has boundaries, where intimacy can adapt. Repair is possible, and where both partners matter, not just the person struggling and not just the person supporting, but both. Because navigating bipolar disorder together does not mean one person disappears so the other one can survive. It means both people learn how to stay connected, honest, protected, and loved through the highs, the lows, and the healing in between. If this episode resonated with you, don't just sit with it, use it. Take one piece from today and bring it into your relationship this week. Because insight without action doesn't create change. Intentional behavior does. If you want deeper support, tools, and structured guidance, you can explore my workshops and relationship resources at evolveyourintimacy.com. And if this episode helped you feel seen, understood, or gave you the language for something you couldn't quite explain, share it with your partner. Sometimes the most powerful way to start a conversation is not by finding the perfect words, but by pressing play. And if you haven't already, make sure you follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find this work and start changing the way they show up in their relationships. Until next week, stay connected, stay curious, and stay intentional about the way you show up in your most intimate relationships.